For the first story, am I the a-hole for being completely honest to my biological parents about how my childhood was really awful? I was given up for adoption right after I was born. Unfortunately, my adoption didn't work out, and I grew up in foster care until I turned 18. I'm now 19 and in college. In February, I got a Facebook message from a man claiming to be my father. We messaged back and forth, and while I kept a lot of my childhood details private, we did make plans to meet him and my mother. They weren't married to each other, by the way. When I got to the restaurant, I was very shocked and honestly upset to find my father and mother had brought their spouses, as well as their children, to surprise me. My father's mother, so my grandmother, was also there. I was already feeling very emotional about the whole thing, and seeing everyone there didn't help. So, I sat through an hour of listening to them sharing all about their lives, while I faked smile through everything. Honestly, I feel very jealous that they had kids they really loved, and how they all had really happy lives after ditching me. Then they started asking about me and my parents, and how my Facebook gave very little away about my life. I basically lost it, and started crying like a little bee, lol, and told them how crappy my adoptive parents were, and how crappy foster life was. I was pretty snarky and sarcastic when I said that I'm glad their lives worked out for them, because mine sure as hell didn't. I couldn't stop crying, and my father had to drop me back home. He was very apologetic. I feel very crappy about it. I made my mother and father cry at the restaurant. They were really nice people. I got a few messages from my mother and father separately where they've been apologizing and if they could make it up to me. My mother in particular seems really upset by everything, and I hate that I may have messed up her happy life. Her last message basically said that she's been unable to sleep and wants to see me again. I've been ignoring their messages and just been focusing on school instead. Am I the a-hole? Maybe I should have been more honest before the meetup. Now for the top comments. No a-holes here. You have a right to your life. And they have probably spent the last 19 years clinging to the idea that you had a better life than they could give you, being hit by the reality that their happiness now is built on the opportunities they had by condemning you to misery has probably hurt them quite a bit, but that's not your fault. Yeah, but they're pretty close to being the a-hole for bringing everyone with them to what should have been a personal meeting. They messed up, sure. Doesn't seem like they were being intentionally malicious though. Stupid and hurtful, but I wouldn't judge them a-holes for it. No a-holes here, but it was a bad call. Not the a-hole. Bringing their families with them must have felt like a kick on the teeth, because it was a glimpse of something you never had. It was too much too soon. I can completely understand why this was overwhelming. Yes, that's just cruel, even if Opie was raised in a happy household, not the a-hole. The bio parents sounded like they thought Opie had a good life with adoptive parents and wanted to link the families. To their horror, that wasn't the case. They are still a-holes though, not the a-hole. Hey, I hope you're alright. This sounds massively complex and as if there is a lot of trauma. I don't think this is a case for this sub. Please reach out to a friend. Maybe your university campus has a psychologist you could speak to. Wishing you all the best, an internet stranger. Thanks. I've just been very busy with school, and it's kept my mind off this situation. I'll get therapy once I graduate and have health insurance. Lol. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not meeting my bio family and responding to the message they sent me with a simple no thanks? I am not sure how to start a post off, but I'll try to give a bit of background information, I guess. Oh, and in any case it is important, I am 25 male, and the parents are probably in their late 40s to early 50s. Long story short, I was put up for adoption by these people, got adopted, got placed out of my adoptive parents' house when I was 9, and spent the remainder of my youth in and out of foster homes and placements. Fortunately, I never had that much of a problem. I quickly got used to it, and when I was 18, I managed to get myself into college and it all worked out for me. I got a good job now, a lovely girlfriend, a ton of friends who I consider family, and I am happy to be honest. I ended up receiving a very long message from a woman in one of my social media accounts, and it boiled down to a load of excuses as to why they gave me up, primarily centering around their age, early 20s, conservative upbringing, they weren't married, and their parents forcing them. They then started telling me about themselves and what they referred to as my siblings. They finally finished that off with stating their desire to meet me and that they wanted me to be a part of their family. Now, I don't hold much against these people. I know it may seem like that, but I don't. It's a case of not caring, if anything. I have never longed to meet them, search them out, or anything of that sort. I just never had a desire to know them. It wouldn't change anything anyway. I ended up responding with a simple no thanks, and followed that up by telling them not to contact me anymore. I figured that would be the end of it, but I couldn't be more wrong. The following days, I started receiving messages from these siblings uttering their desire to meet me. When I told them the same, that turned into accusations of making their parents cry. I ended up blocking them all, which resulted in messages from their friends and new accounts, so I eventually just stopped using the account. It is obvious these people want to meet me and are hurt by my refusal, so am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It's your life and your decision. They give up all rights to you 25 years ago, and they don't automatically get a pass when they start feeling bad about it. It's your choice. That's the thing. I just don't care to meet them. They've showed you how right you are not to meet them by harassing you. If this keeps up, report them to the police and get a restraining order. You owe these people nothing. Best of luck in everything. Not the a-hole. Their attempted manipulation and intimidation to get you to meet them is a huge red flag. You're doing fine and are happy. I say no need to involve a bunch of family. Well, to be honest, I wasn't going to meet them, manipulation or not. I just wonder, what do they need for you? I mean, come on, it's not just a pure love for your blue eyes. Seeing how the whole pack is engaged and hyped, a lot of people putting too much effort. My bet is an organ donation or something material. I mean, I do have pretty sexy blue eyes though, so who knows? Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for laughing in my stepsister's face when she showed up at my place and asking to stay for a while? This happened 3 weeks ago. I, 21 female, was home in my apartment that I share with my 2 closest friends when my stepsister, 19 female, showed up and asked if she could stay with us for a while. I laughed and told her no and closed the door. She ended up going to my dad and her mom's house where she told them everything, and they are pissed. They said it was reckless and cruel to turn her away without seeing that she was okay, and my dad said he was disappointed in me. I told him I did not want her anywhere she could steal or break something that didn't belong to her. He told me she hasn't done that in years, and I have no right to hold childhood mistakes against her. The last time she broke something that was mine was 2 years ago, when I went to stay for Christmas and she went into my room while I was taking a shower and took my phone, then broke said phone. I pointed this out to him, and he told me I can't stay mad at my sister. I told him I'm not mad at my sister because I don't have one, which he did not take great. Then my stepsister started bugging me with how mean it was that I laughed at her, and how she's changed. I asked if she changed enough to want to apologize for the crap she did, and maybe even pay me back. She said no, and she doesn't need to. I told her then she hasn't really changed. She tried to get me to believe her by her just saying it. All 3 are currently muted by me, so I don't have to take their crap. Am I the a-hole? Adding more details which I didn't make clear enough. She has constantly stolen and broken things that were mine. She was a child when it started, which you could dismiss. You could say that being 17 when the phone thing happened, she was still a child, valid. But when it is a long pattern of the same behavior, of taking other people's stuff without permission, and then either through carelessness or force break stuff, it makes me not trust her or want her in my place, where I live with others and rent, when her damage would cost me a lot more. She has never apologized or made any effort to make amends for it, so I have no reason to take her word for it. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Trust is hard to earn, yet so easy to break. You could have handled it a bit better instead of just laughing in her face, but I agree with not letting her stay. She only says she's changed, but you haven't seen real evidence of it. Also, how do you break a phone that fast? Did she pick it up and started throwing it at walls? Was it a flip phone that she tried to close backwards? Did she try to use it to scrape ice off her windshield? Like, I'm extremely accident prone and drop things constantly. The only times I've broken a phone are dropped one into a mug of tea by accident, dropped one repeatedly over several years while it was in a case, dropped it face down onto gravel. How do you just wander into somebody's room and just break a phone? I'm genuinely confused about the logistics here. Edit. My point is that it's extremely unlikely to me that this was an accident because again, how? Not the a-hole. You owe her nothing. She's not your dependent and you hold no responsibility to her. Why weren't her parents her first call? I would form a hard boundary. Tell your dad that you will not discuss her anymore. If he tries to bring her up, you will end the conversation. He forced her into your life and now is an adult. You have made the decision to cut her out. I'm taking a bet mommy and daddy got tired of her crap and told her to find some place to get lost for a few days, or she had a tantrum and run away. She then decided to crash at Opie's place. Opie's parents wanted a few days of peace, which is why they're pushing back about the brat being back home. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole? Taking in niece and sharing awful texts. My niece is a college senior with a 3.5 GPA with a double major. She is a beautiful young woman that makes the room brighter when she walks in. She has a great wit and even better laugh. For 6 months, my sister-in-law cut down our 20-year-old niece on a daily basis over everything. They didn't like her boyfriend. They didn't like her coming home late. They didn't want her having guests over in their shared home when the parents were gone. During this time, they would routinely make cutting comments comparing her to an aunt that died of a drug overdose, threatened to call the cops over her coming home late from curfew, called her a W on a routine basis, and just blasted her for everything that they didn't believe in their my way is the only way ways. When we noticed our niece was getting really bad with this mental abuse, we decided enough was enough and time to stay with us for a while. Our niece immediately began to flourish, but our relationship with my wife's sister and her husband plummeted. They wanted us to instill rules we wouldn't do and wanted us to make it hard on our niece so she would go back home. Instead, we gave her a loving and nurturing home with a family that does things together, shows affection, and helps each other out on individual problems. I went from having 3 children to 4, as there is always room for one more at the table. My niece began to flourish, and that is all we cared about. A few weeks later, during our family vacation with our niece in tow, my sister-in-law blew up our phones for 6 straight hours. My wife was getting very upset, and out of frustration, I showed a text to my niece which contained absolutely terrible things said about her by her own mother. I felt it was both BS our family vacation was getting wrecked, and I felt she had a right to see what her mother was saying about her. Our relationship continued to deteriorate with my sister-in-law. We continuously encouraged our niece to repair the relationship, and after a few months, while still living with us, our niece began seeing her parents for meals. It was during this time my niece was told that my daughter was an ass by my niece's grandfather and that my niece should get out of my house. Because of this, we cut off our 17-year-old daughter from seeing them until they apologized, which they have refused to do. During this refusal, I admitted, actually proudly, about sharing the text because there is only so much a man can take, and after learning they called my daughter an ass, they needed something in return. Now they are saying I am the a-hole. What do you think? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law's acts can only be described as utterly abusive and inconsiderate. That being said, I would be careful about sharing your niece the texts because it can make her mental health worse. She may have a right to know what is being said, but it may do more harm, possibly for years, in the long run. Thank you for taking the time to weigh in. This has been a very tough situation for all of us. My niece is thriving now, so I know we did right by her. See, that's where I'm having a hard time deciding if this is not the a-hole or everyone sucks here. I think it's great that you're there for your niece and trying to help her through all this. But why, when you were trying to get her away from the emotional abuse, would you show her those text messages? And don't say because you felt she deserved to see what they were saying about her because that's BS. She had to listen to that while she lived with them. I'm sure she realized that they were being a-holes. I showed the texts to my niece which contained absolutely terrible things said about her by her own mother. We continuously encouraged our niece to repair the relationship. Stop doing that. They're abusive towards her. She doesn't need to know about them. You should go no contact. Not the a-hole. Thank you. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.